Hello, welcome to this playtest of Writer's Room. I'm Anders, he, him. This game is part of the Open Hearth. And yeah, let's do some introductions. Jim, I'll start with you.
Hey, I am Jim Crocker. I generally go by he, him, but if you're using they, them more generically, that's totally fine with me too. Um, I've been on Open Hearths for quite a while. Anders, you and I have played a bunch of games before. Gerwin, I think you and I played back in the days when you were on there a little more regularly. We played a few times. Gabe, nice to meet you. I know we have not played together before. And like to the extent that I have a single fandom that has gone further back in my life than role playing games and comic books, it is Star Trek. If you held a gun to my head and said you can bring, one single fandom with you to your desert island or, your bunker after the apocalypse or whatever, I would, sorry, Stan Lee. I would bring Gene Roddenberry. And so I was delighted, Anders, when you put this up. And I played some Microscope before, so I'm familiar with the contours of it. But you've done some interesting things with this. I listened to your X-Men thing that you did, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this.
Cool, thank you. Gerwin.
Hi, I'm Gerwin. I don't get out to play much these days, but I used to be very heavily involved in the Open Hearth back when we were the Gauntlet. These days, I'm a father, and I don't get to roleplay, save maybe being a robber that my son arrests occasionally. But yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Like Jim, I've been a huge fan of Trek all the way through. I remember I remember watching when Next Generation came out, and we were literally throwing parties for the episodes when they came out. Uh, when the first episode of Voyager came out, me and my role playing group in school, we all spent the weekend just having a huge party and waiting for the episodes to drop. It was absolute. I'm a huge fan of it. One of the oldest, most dog-eared books I've got is a very old copy of the Star Trek Encyclopedia. Uh, it's currently in storage somewhere over there behind about another three boxes of books. But it's been well loved, and there's a reason for that. Oh, and I'm quite lucky in that the person who wrote the Star Trek roleplay game that's currently out by Modifius lives in Nottingham, so I was involved in some of the play tests for that.
That's
Cool.
neat. So I just got to ask, when you say encyclopedia, do you mean the concordance, like the one that had the wheel that you could spin to look at the episodes on the front cover, or is
No,
that?
no. This, this,
Oh,
this,
okay,
this is this is. I really got into Star Trek mainly with Next Generation,
got it. Okay,
and
okay,
I
okay,
watched it beforehand, but
okay.
I have to admit, mainly I was watching Lost in Space
Sure.
when I was a little kid.
The pay.
But I grew in Star Wars and Lost in Space, but I grew into Star Trek, and I love it. I absolutely
Fantastic.
love it.
Cool, thank you. Gabe.
Hi, yeah, I haven't. I don't think I've played with any of you all in the past. I think I'm mainly in a different time slot. A lot of my games, but I'm very excited to play with you guys. And I keep seeing the writers' room things on the calendar, and it always looks very interesting. So I'm glad I was able to participate. I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, but around the time I was in middle school, there was a lot of reruns on the like BBC America. So I caught a lot of those. So I'm pretty well versed in Next Generation, and I watched the first season of Discovery around the time it came out, and I'm a big fan of both of those. So not quite as involved with the lore and stuff, but I enjoy it. So excited to play around in that world.
Cool. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Like I don't consider myself a Star Trek fan because I don't consider myself a fan of a lot of things. I'm interested. I like Star Trek. I watched bits and pieces of I think every show except Picard. I want to watch that, but it hasn't been available on any of the services I have. The show I watched the most is probably Voyager, because it was on Swedish television when I was at university, and I knew some huge Star Trek fans, so I'd watch with some of them. I watched Discovery, enjoyed that quite a bit. I've enjoyed all the shows for various in their various ways. I started watching. I'd only watched, I think, a couple of episodes of the original series, so I started watching that on Netflix about a year ago. I've been like dipping in for an episode here and there, and it's a lot of fun as a both to watch as a show and as kind of a historical document. It's like one of the foundational texts of nerddom in general. So I don't consider myself like well versed in the specific Star Trek lore. I know a lot of stuff, but if you want me to describe a particular species of alien, I probably don't want to know what they are unless they're Vulcans or Klingons or like maybe something else. So yeah. So that's our general Star Trek baseline. The premise of the game here is that we have been tasked with setting up a live action Star Trek show, and we have full freedom in deciding what that means. I think we'll stick like somewhere between Enterprise is the first like prequel one, right? And yeah, and I don't know which one is latest in the time. So is that Voyager still?
Well, I mean, technically it's Discovery because they went like 1,000 years into the future in
Oh
Discovery.
yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true.
but yeah, I mean, really, like if you're a hardcore Trekker, then I mean, honestly, like the video games are what are kind of furthest in the what we think of as kind of that current timeline. But it's Picard. It's Picard that would be the furthest along in the like the kind of next generation era timeline. Like assuming you're not jumping into the far future like that.
Yeah. We'll skip the far future. But we can play around. We can go beyond Picard if we want. We won't go earlier than Enterprise because that's kind of a starting point. And we want to have spaceships in space, and that's kind of the first for that, as far as I understand it. But that's our only limitation. We'll stay within like the mainline universe and do something. Then if we want to bring in something from other timelines or whatever, that's fine. But we're at least starting out in the. So the way this game works, if you've played Microscope, you'll recognize most of what we're doing. But the structure is a bit different. First of all, we'll just take turns round and round, not doing the like jumping back and forth and setting themes and that sort of thing, because I feel like the structure that's set up provides enough that we don't need to do that. There's a structure provided here already.
Sorry, before we start, can I just check, are we using any safety tools?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. We are using lines and veils. They are on the safety tab. I've checked off a few things. If you want to add things, please do. We're using the X card. So if something shows up that we don't want in the game, say that you want to X card it or make the sign or type it in the chat. I may not see it in the chat because it's not very, it doesn't draw a lot of attention. But yeah, whatever you do, or however you want to do it, do it. You want me to explain why you want to X card something, but you may need to explain exactly what it is you want to excise from the game. Lines and Veils, I think you'll all be familiar with. I'll ask you, Gabe. Yeah, you're nodding. And Jim and Gerwin, I've played with you, so I think you know. We have the open door policy, so if you need to leave for any reason, you do that. If you can, let us know when, if so, when you'll be back. That's good, but it's not necessary. We have the Open Hearth code of conduct, but I don't think that will be a problem here. I think you're all good people. Yeah, let's see. So is everyone happy with the lines and veils? Cool. Then we have lines on sexual assault, violence and coercion, torture by the PCs, graphic gore, and Earth religion as scientific truth. We have veils on harm to animals, harm to children, domestic violence, and sexual content. And we have an ask first on suicide. I don't think any of that will be a problem, but if something shows up and you feel like, oh, we actually had this in the lines and veils, then call attention to it and we will deal with it appropriately. Thank you for reminding me about the safety tools. I'm so used to playing with people who are so familiar with the safety tools that that I don't usually. I don't always go through them, but it's good to do.
I'm sorry,
anyway.
Anders. It's been so long that I played. I just wanted a recap of what we were actually using. So
No, that's fine. That's fine. We should, especially since all of us haven't played together before. Then it's extra good to do a reminder. Cool. Back to the explanation. So I'll set the general premise. The structure of the game is that we're creating the first season of this TV show. We have 5 episodes that may not be entirely realistic for a TV show, but it's appropriate for the game. Each episode has 3 scenes, and this can be interpreted loosely as like the beginning, the middle, and the end of the episode. But you'll see how that works. And if it turns out that, oh, I want to add like a stinger at the end, but we've already written the 3rd scene, just tuck it in there, no problem. Same thing if you want a cold open that doesn't really connect to the 1st scene, just put it in the 1st scene. These aren't intended to be interpreted strictly in a scene sense. We will also set up some general information about the series and this 1st season. Since we're only doing 1 season, it may not be entirely clear what fits where. It's not super important. If we were doing multiple seasons, then we could like get into like, oh, is this an important plot arc for this particular season and that sort of thing. But I split them up in case we were to do a sequel or something like that. I think most of the terms people who watch TV shows somewhat regularly, but I'll go through some of them just in case. Elevator pitch is just like the very short summary of the premise of the show. Tone is just a general description. This can include like a rating. If we're saying, oh, this is PG-13, then we'll put that in there. It can also be like, is this an optimistic show or not? Generally, Star Trek is optimistic, but that's not always the case. We have themes. We have types of conflict for the series overview. And this is like, if we were doing, if this was Buffy, we'd have fighting vampires would be like one of the types of conflict, and probably teen drama would be another type of conflict for Buffy. For Star Trek, it will probably be different, but exactly what we put in there is up to us. Casting notes. This is something we'll talk about later. This is to do with what kind of actors or non-actors will cast as the characters, but I'll go into that in a bit more detail when we get there. For the season overview and for the episodes, the synopsis is just again, general summary of the events of the season. For most Star Trek seasons, maybe barring things like Discovery and Deep Space Nine, which have more of like bigger story arcs. For most of these, it would be like the crew go on encounter strange planets and phenomena in space and deal with them. That's kind of like could be a synopsis for the more episodic shows. Themes, plot arcs, again, like plot arcs would be like more specific arcs within that general storyline. Core conflicts are like recurring conflicts within the show or the season. Recurring motifs, this is something that can exist from the beginning, or it's something we can add as time goes on. This is like specific visuals or lines of dialogue that take on a deeper meaning because they recur in different situations, but have like a common theme or something like that. For the episodes, I don't think there's anything strange there. Yeah, if a scene will have the most important parts of the scene is the summary that shows like, oh, this is generally what's going on in the scene, and then you have plot beats, which are like specific events within that scene. There you can also add visuals, like there's a shot of the ship going to warp speed or something like that. If you want specific lines of dialogue, needle drops aren't that common in Star Trek, but if you want to throw a song in there that's appropriate, you can do that. So that's those. I'll go to the cast tab. Here we can add characters, and these can be any type of characters, like the main characters or someone who's a guest star or whatever. We don't separate those. We just add them in here, and then we'll see how much they show up. Depending on what kind of casting we do, you may want to name the actor. We can throw in an image. Description notes is like just general description of the character, and if we want to take some notes to remind ourselves of things that have happened for them. I've also added something called dramatic hooks. This here I'm stealing some terminology from Robin Laws. We're offering two options. You have dramatic characters and iconic characters, and I'm using again his terminology here. An iconic character is one who they are who they are, basically. This is Indiana Jones is an iconic character. Sherlock Holmes is an iconic character. They remain who they are. They may at some point doubt themselves or like get pulled away from who they are, but they return to who they are. Like that always happens. A dramatic character, on the other hand, they have two dramatic poles. These are opposite drives that impel them to action, and they have to choose between them. And once they've changed, and they arrive at a new status quo. And for some characters, they resolve that tension, and then they get a new tension, and they start struggling with something else. And some just stay at their new status quo. I'll use Han Solo as an example here. Han Solo, he starts out as a dramatic character. He has the tension between his selfish drives and his desire to be like a loyal friend. And in A New Hope, he's like struggling between those two. Do I just take the money and run, or do I return and help my friends? And in the end, he returns and helps his friends. And from then on, he's an iconic character because he doesn't have that sort of internal struggle anymore. He's a loyal friend, and maybe like there may be some minor bickering and that sort of thing, but he doesn't really have that sort of tension anymore. So that's about dramatic polls. And so if you want to create a dramatic character who has this sort of internal struggle, give them 2 dramatic poles that are opposites, that pull in different directions. They shouldn't be. You shouldn't be able to reconcile them, at least not easily. On the other hand, if you want to make an iconic character, give them an iconic ethos, like a description of who they are, and that's what comes through. We don't need to have these things for the characters, but it makes it easier to like pull at them and that sort of thing. And for this kind of fairly short game, it's probably not necessary either, because we'll like have in the character descriptions, and we can keep that in mind. Any questions so far? Cool. When we get into play, we'll first do some of the setup for the series as a whole. We'll take turns adding things to the series overview or adding characters to the cast. And once I think about 2 rounds of that, 1 or 2 rounds will probably be enough for us to feel like, oh, now we have a grasp on what this show is. We'll do a little bit of talk before that for the general premise and that sort of thing, just to make sure that we're roughly on the same page. Unlike in Standard Microscope, I want to encourage polling the table. Like if you have an idea and you're not sure if the other players think this is a good idea, ask around. But it's the player whose turn it is. They have the final say on like how they want to word something or make the decision. But you can ask the other players if you want to. Once we feel like we're done with the series overview, and that doesn't mean that we've filled out everything. It just means that we have enough that we have a grasp on what's going on. We know some of the characters. We know roughly what the show is about. Then we go into standard play, which is what we'll do then for the rest of the session. And in standard play, actually, I'll go through that once we get to it. It's the same thing, but with different, just filling out other things. I'm going to ask Jim to start.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So,
sorry. Actually, we shouldn't do that yet. We should like discuss the general premise of the show, not necessarily to the detailed level of an elevator pitch, but like, are we doing a ship exploring space, or are we doing something? Are we doing Deep Space Nine, where we're on a space station, or something like that? And the general tone, and we'll get into casting notes, but we can wait a bit with that. But I'll let Jim. Since I pointed to you, what do you think you want to do?
I think the best, most iconic, most interesting Star Trek shows are we explore, are the what I think of as Planet of the Week shows, mm-hmm. right? Where you have the opportunity to stay somewhere for a couple of 3 episodes if you want to, but the whole point of it is exploration, that we're pushing the boundaries of human consciousness and all this kind of stuff and everything, and expanding the Federation and all that stuff. I find those to be the most interesting shows. Classic Trek, Next Generation, Strange New Worlds, which is amazing, just fantastic. The new Star Trek show that's on Paramount is like probably they've done some of my favorite Star Trek episodes, period. Lower Decks, the animated show that does something similar, is a lot of fun and really mm-hmm. interesting, because you get into, but the other thing that might be interesting is a thing that they've talked about for many years that they've never actually done, and that's a Starfleet Academy show. Like if we did we're going to have it happen in one place, Starfleet Academy would be fun. We could have like a few kind of, cutesy, like hot teen actors and stuff on there, as well as some older folks who are joining, the Academy at a later date and everything. And, you can have the Golden Gate Bridge in the background for half of your episodes, but they can also be going out on training missions and having things happen to them and stuff like that. So those are the two angles that I find most interesting, is the kind of traditional, the way they always do it, Planet of the Week Star Trek shows, or something that was focused on what it's like to choose to do that in a world that is ostensibly, like we're like post scarcity and anybody can do anything they want. And if, you want to hang around and play video games for the rest of your life, you totally can do that in the Federation. Why would people do this and like actively choose to work and risk their lives and subject themselves to discipline when they wouldn't have to? And I've always found that kind of like quasi-military part of it interesting, and they sort of skate over it oftentimes. But some of the episodes where they touch on that, like there's a really classic Next Generation episode where Wesley's been at Starfleet Academy and he like a thing happens and Picard has to come and chew him out and everything. That's a great episode. And so that's the other thing that would be of interest to me.
Cool. Thank you. Gerwin.
I have to say I love the idea of actually involved in the academy, but I think there's a middle ground here in which we could have a ship out doing an exploration, but the crew are predominantly cadets with actual instructors on board.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
What I would love to see, something that came into Next Gen and then virtually vanished. I'd love to see an ambassador class. It's something that they lost the model of, so it vanished from the series. So I'd love to see this as an old ambassador class brought out of mothball and basically given to the cadets as a training ship. Like I say, it's one of these classic models. It's one of my favorite Enterprises. I absolutely love the design of the ambassador, but it shows up in one episode and then virtually vanishes again from everything. But like I say, that's just a bitch. It's not. I'm not saying that's a requirement, but it's something that I would love to see. I would love to see. I love the idea of the cadets, but if we're going to do that, I'd love to have that homage in as an older ship. That's not top of the range, and
that ambassador class is very Enterprise C looking to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is the Enterprise C.
It is. Okay. It's the same. It's what they use for the Enterprise C. Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. The idea that they give them an out-of-date ship like that because they don't expect them to run into anything.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Cool. Gabe.
No, I love Gerwin's idea. I think that I think it's interesting. I think there's a couple different angles. I'm not super. I think that sounds like a perfect subject for me. I think like I guess in terms of like what interests me that I don't think is uh like I've seen a lot in Star Trek media is like I think the inner workings of the Federation, that kind of thing is always interesting to me because it's like this military hierarchy vaguely in a vaguely utopian society, but obviously there's no such thing as like a perfect bureaucracy. Um, so like the episode of The Next Generation where like they put Data on trial, I vaguely remember that one. And what else? I think it's interesting. Like most of what we see in Star Trek is like very like veteran professional people. So it would be interesting, I think, to explore like what actual skills does it take to become Picard, or become Troy or whatever, become all of these different people. Like, what do you actually have to do? What do you have to learn to do? So I love that premise.
Yeah. Sounds great to me. I really like the idea of a close to graduation class who are like out on maybe spending some time at the academy, but also going on like test missions, or maybe they're out on an extended mission. We can figure that out. But I really like this idea. So let's go with that. Well. So for the tone, do we want to do like the that's my preference, but if anyone wants something else, we can definitely talk about that.
Anders, I'm sorry, but you're a little jittery, and I lost what you
okay.
like. You said for the tone, let's do, and that would be my preference. Was what I heard.
Yeah,
so yes.
I prefer the general, like fairly optimistic Star Trek tone, humanistic
100%.
impulses and that sort of thing, trying to do the right thing, staying away from the more cynical side. Not that Star Trek generally goes there a lot, but that's just my preference.
Yep.
Everyone seems to be okay with that.
For sure.
Do we want to put a rating on it? We don't need to.
Sorry, when you say a rating, do you mean an age rating, as in?
Yeah. Is this
PG-13?
Are we going for the hard R, or are we?
No, I genuinely dislike this new thing where they have them swearing sometimes on the show. It just it's like so incongruous and out of left field that I don't like it. No, it should be something that they can put on. They can put streaming on Paramount, because that's the whole point of this is to get people to pay to get a whole streaming network so that they can watch one show. Which is what we do with Paramount Plus. So
it could. Is there comedy to be had in the fact that Universal Translator won't translate swear words?
I put optimistic, family friendly as the tone, and then we should discuss casting. Since we don't have a limited budget, we can do whatever we want here. So we can go for like big name actors if we want to, or maybe we want to do like, no, that doesn't feel right. It feels weird if we have all these A-list actors show up. Maybe we stay with well-known actors, but not like the big money tickets. Or maybe we want to do like unfamiliar faces. We don't want known actors here. Or maybe we want a mix. Like we have unknowns for the main cast, but then we have some famous actors showing up for like supporting cast or as guest stars. And I don't have a strong preference here. I'll start with you, Gabe. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any particular like actor suggestions, but I think like this is I guess just my personal opinion about TV, but I think there's a lack of like international actors or like actors who are like I like when shows for English language audiences will bring in like people from like theater stuff or like people that aren't super well known in movies or people who are like maybe well known in like Spanish films or other films like that. So I think that would be a cool idea, especially if it's like a multicultural supposed to be a multicultural world. We're pulling in people from all over Earth, all over the galaxy.
Yeah, that's cool. Gerwin?
I agree. I was going to jokingly suggest Kelsey Grammer at one point, return as Morgan Bateson, but I think that's pushing it a little bit too far at that point. Having said that, I really think if we're going to have a lead on this, it really needs to be something that embraces the whole diversity, infinite diversity, and infinite. I forget the quote. I'm sorry. I'm a really bad Trekkie. But the diverse nature of it, and I think someone from outside the normal television circles potentially would be a good idea. So what are we casting specifically at this point? Because
right now we're just setting the parameters for the casting. And so we're talking about bringing in some international actors, maybe not the most famous faces. We're not deciding on any specific actors at this point. It's just like to get a sense of so that we're on the same page when I want to cast this person. That wasn't really what I was thinking.
One thing I would like to see is less human centric Starfleet. Given that we have an infinite budget, let's use that. And so with a wider variety of actual races amongst the crew and the cadets.
Cool. Yeah. Jim.
It's infinite diversity in infinite combination is what you're
Thank
looking
you.
for there,
Yes.
Gerwin. Yes, yeah, I love that about that. The cool thing about like an academy show is that you can cast all the students and like new cadets as like unknown or lesser known actors, right? And I think one of the things about the diversity there is you think Starfleet Academy, you think like it's a bunch of college kids, right? But it doesn't have to be. It absolutely can be, you know, our civilization made contact with the Federation. We joined the Federation last year. I'm retired from my job as a tailor on my planet and decided that I wanted to, you know, and so you can have a, you know, a septuagenarian Shakespearean actor, you know, or a, you know, someone who's in telenovelas or something like that, playing the matriarch, you know, joining this academy class, and we can have varied species. We can have people from different worlds. We can have one of them be a dolphin, because I'm actually wearing my Cerritos cetacean ops shirt here right now, so we can or we can have one of the teachers be a dolphin. I don't know, something like that. But you can have all the students be you know, relative like unknown in terms of like American television. But then, you know, if you need someone to come in 4 times a year to be your stellar cartography professor, that's when you get Jeff Goldblum to do, you know, you pay him for an hour of his time and he shoots, you know, 4 episodes worth of sassing the students and stuff like that, and then he's gone. And so like you just then you create that thing where like every episode you're like, oh, it's botany class, we haven't seen botany before, who are they going to get to, you know, and like Emma Thompson walks on and, you know, does a shtick for a couple episodes. And I think that would be, you know, and you hire someone with some gravitas to be their main, you know, whoever their acting captain on the ship is, that's what you get your, you know, whatever your Charlize Theron or something like that, you know, to do that. So because they're going to be in every episode, and they're going to be, and like you need somebody that plausibly everybody on the ship, like all the cadets, are going to look to for leadership, for inspiration, to be a surrogate parent to a bunch of them, or a surrogate kid, or a surrogate sibling, or whatever, depending on their age. But that's, I mean, you know, whoever you're casting as the, you know, as the person sitting in the chair is who I think, you know, we want to give the most attention to.
Cool. Because I spend way too much time on Pinterest, I have a couple of Pinterest boards. I've linked them in the on the cast tab, so you can look at those if you want to. And if you have other ideas, then that's obviously perfectly fine. There's an infinite number of pictures out there. Cool. So I put for casting notes. I'll just put some general words. International, unknown, less known for cadets. Big names for supporting casts. Does that feel roughly right for what we were talking about? Cool. And we can obviously change this if we realize that, oh, we should totally get this person for this or that. This is just to keep notes for ourselves to remember what we discussed. If you, go back and check, yeah.
The way Discovery had David Cronenberg come on, you know, 3 or 4 times a season as the, you know, kind of like Star Trek equivalent of, you know, whatever, like M from James Bond or something like that was super cool, you know. And because like a little of him goes a long way.
Yeah.
But it was like the perfect amount. So it's something I'd love to see stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we'll snake around again. So Jim, now we're actually going to start.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think we'll do a series setup here, and once we're done with that, we'll take a break. So now we're looking at the series overview and cast. So if you want to add a character, you can. If you add a character, you can add whatever you want to that character. You can cast them, or you can maybe just, I found this face. I want this to be a character on the show. I don't know who they are or anything else about them. You can do that. Or if you just know that, I want the captain to be grumpy hard ass, you can just say captain is a grumpy hard ass as a
So yeah.
or you can go for something like writing the elevator pitch, or if someone else has written the elevator pitch and you want to modify it a bit, you can do that, obviously with the consent of the player who wrote the first one. You can add themes, types of conflict, anything on the series overview. The title, the theme song.
Man, oh man.
But you get to add
Okay.
one thing, and then we'll go around. And
Okay, let's talk about the theme song. Where is that in the? If I'm looking
it's
at that
on the series overview.
There we go. Series overview. All right. Yeah. So here's what we've got is instrumental. We've got a orchestral instrumental with voiceover intro. None of this pop song crapola. None of this just whatever, just random French horns and timpanis. It needs to start, you need to lead off with whoever we cast as the captain saying space, the final frontier, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, music that is not the same as the original, the original theme or the Alexander Courage, Next Generation, but that reflects that. And we see the ship in a couple of different settings where we might see it, and that opening sequence ends with, maybe their material, we see shapes materializing in front of Starfleet Academy with the Golden Gate Bridge in the background or something like that. But that's something that evokes that thing that immediately makes you think Star Trek when you hear it. I feel very strongly about that we got to have that beginning voiceover.
I just realized that title sequence should be a thing on the series overview, so I'll add that. Cool. I'll take the next turn and just add the things you said about the title sequence, showing the ship in various settings in space, and I think in the dock at the Academy. I think we want to do that. Some shots of, I think, Academy interiors.
I think Academy exterior with the Golden Gate Bridge over the shoulder, because that's an iconic Star Trek thing. The fact that Starfleet Academy, Starfleet headquarters, is in San Francisco, and somehow, that's probably not the original Golden Gate Bridge.
I was
the Golden Gate Bridge of Theseus is probably what it is. Every rivet has been replaced so many times that is it still the Golden Gate Bridge?
When are we basing this series? Is it after the Dominion War? Because we could still have damage from the Breen attack showing on.
I love that. Itself. Yeah, it's got scaffolding up on it and stuff like that. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I also want the Dominion War in the rearview mirror. I never liked the Dominion War, so having that. But rebuilding is a good thing to do. Go ahead, Gabe. Sorry.
Can someone brief me on what the Dominion War is?
Deep Space Nine season 4 to 7. There was a big war between a bunch of aliens that were in a. Basically, you have the Federation, but you have the Anti-Federation, which is all about one race controlling the others. and it was basically a war that broke out between them, and ended up with the Federation united most of the Alpha Quadrant to basically defeat the Dominion as part of a long ongoing war. But as part of that, initially the Federation was the Klingons were losing until the Romulans were brought into the war. But part of that was an attack on Earth, where San Francisco was attacked and damaged. So, like I say, I think that's partially why some of the teaching is actually done on ships now, because the facilities back on the actual academy itself is still under construction.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gabe.
Yeah, I'm gonna add a theme. I'm gonna poll just to see if this is cool with people. Um, I'm thinking of a theme of like the imperfections of like human administrations, something like that. That like not that the Federation is corrupt or anything, but just that like inevitably there's gonna be conflict between people or someone there's a lot of potential conflicts that arise in like a military hierarchy, something like that.
Yeah. The imperfections of human endeavor.
Yeah. I'll put that.
Yeah, we're optimistic, but we're not looking away from that. There will be issues that need to be resolved.
There'll
Cool.
be politics, and anytime there's two people in a room, there's politics. So,
Yeah.
And that's inescapable, no matter how utopian you are. Yeah.
Cool. Gerwin.
I'd also like to add a type of conflict, which is making the cut. A lot of these people are cadets. They're actually trying to pass and trying to graduate Starfleet Academy. So there's a huge amount of pressure on them. I think that needs to be shown in the interpersonal relationships in the show, but also it just shows just how much pressure these young adults are actually under, and how some of them aren't necessarily dealing with it in the most productive and healthy ways.
Yeah.
Do you think that, sorry, could I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, certainly.
Oh yeah. Do you think that do you think that making there's only like the first, maybe the best, 20 or, the best X number of people are accepted? So like there's an element of competition, or do you think it's only based on like test scores or something?
Well, it's about graduating and actually passing with sufficient grades to actually get it. But it's also about getting the posting you want and your future career progression. Only so many people can be stationed to the Enterprise as a junior ensign. Then if you fail your ensign's course, you may just go in as a midshipman and then never actually get onto the officer track at all. But these years are basically going to be the foundation for these people's future. And like I say, like any sort of college, that puts an awful lot of pressure on people to want to achieve and want to actually get the grades. And if they're not quite making it, what are they going to do to actually try and get their grades up, and what are they going to sacrifice to actually fulfill their future and fulfill their dreams?
Cool. We're back to Jim.
Oh man, I really like all of that. So we're just doing the stuff that's in the series overview right now, right?
And casting.
And casting. I don't know. I really like Charlize Theron for our captain.
Yeah.
And she had a brief guest appearance on the Orville, so we know she's amenable to doing this kind of science fiction. And
not
she's
that
like,
they need to take that into account, but
yeah, and she's also like, she's at an age where she's like believably got 20 years of experience, but could still absolutely kick your ass with one hand tied behind her back, which is and we'll make her, and I would absolutely want her to be like a veteran with some kind of like PTSD from something that happened in the Dominion Wars that she's carrying around with her, that she's got to figure that she's working through while she's being a teacher and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Cool. So you can go to the cast page, and you can add Charlize Theron as the actor, and then whatever details you want about her character. If you want to name the character or just add some general description, that's up to you. I'll leave you to doing that while I add another character, because I found a cool picture and that's all it takes. So I have someone here who's going to be, oops, this is wrong. It should be centered. And I think she is like a high achiever, very competitive. Probably comes from Starfleet family, or maybe not. I think she's got a chip on her shoulder anyway. And I'm going to give her a couple of dramatic polls here. She wants to best of the best is one thing that's pulling at her, and wants companionship, or wants actually think, what would you call it? Belonging, sense of belonging. Yeah, I'll just put companionship. Maybe someone can give her a name at some point. I don't have that right now. Cool. Gabe.
Cool. Let's see. I love one of my favorite like elements of Star Trek is the Klingons. I love like a warrior culture. So I think I might add a Klingon character, like a cadet, which I'm happy that this is set like after the like time of TNG, when Klingons can be part of Starfleet. Um, so I found a random picture of oh, that's way too big, of like a young looking Klingon person. And I'm gonna give, oh yeah,
If you have the URL for the picture, you can just paste that into the field right below the picture.
oh great.
But now you've inserted it, and that works fine as well. So no problem.
I got it. Um, what was I? Oh yeah. I think maybe this person is probably I like to imagine that this I haven't given them a name either, but that they're chafing against the maybe Starfleet is unfamiliar for them. Like they're used to following like Klingon like code, and so they're kind of maybe chafing against the restrictions of Starfleet, or this idea of like there's something maybe kind of embarrassing or about conforming to like a human devised code of conduct. So maybe they could have a dramatic poll of like order versus freedom, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Gerwin.
Okay. I would like to cast the ship's computer.
Ooh, cool.
There's a traditional voice that's used in the ship's computer, but as much as I would like to use it, I have someone else in mind. I would like to use what's his name? Brendan Gleeson as the computer. Not only just the ship's computer, but the ship has a bar that the crew go to in the holodeck, and he's also the barman there. So
very cool.
We actually get the actor to interact with and be the shoulder for people to lean on and actually do the whole talking to people over the bar in the same way Guinan did, but also as the computer and the training and basically the holographic instructor that shows up. They use the same model for all the different parts of the ship, so we get multiple uses out of them.
Yeah, that's cool.
What do we actually call in the mainframe, or what name do the cadets give him? Do people think?
Ooh.
I feel like it's like the cadets, because whether or not it's true, the cadets have all got to think that the computer is like always there grading them, right? Like that it's omnipresent, that careful what you say in the holodeck. I don't know, maybe they call it the principal or something like that.
Yeah.
Because they think of it as like like the school principal or something like that. But some kind of thing where like I would feel like they would feel a little bit and maybe antagonistic towards it, or unsure about where its loyalties lie.
Principal or monitor, maybe.
Dean.
Or the
Maybe
headmaster.
professor. Yeah,
Oh, the
I don't know if
P.
professor would be confusing with if they have other like professors at the academy.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I think the main computer core is the DN37, so they call it the Dean.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, yeah.
Cool. So we've gone around twice. I feel like we have a pretty good sense of what the show is. I think we can move into regular play, but since it's time to do that and we're on the hour, we should take a break. So let's be back at 10 past. See you then.
Go over my shoulder. He is an endothermic quadruped, carnivorous by nature. So
always nice to have a cat on the call.
Yes, yeah.
Cool. So now we're going into regular play. That doesn't mean that we can still add things to the series overview. We can obviously add more characters. But now we're focusing on the episodes. So what we will do now, this is somewhat similar to standard microscope. You will choose basically a scale you're acting at, and I've given these names: showrunner, producer, and staff writer. That's to give some idea for those who, like me, have spent too much time watching video essays on how this sort of thing works. That might help you, or maybe not, and then it's just there anyway. So when you're being the showrunner, you're developing the series. That means you pick one or two things you want to add to or modify for the series and the season, including casting. So casting is for that's the showrunner does the casting in this division of labor. So yeah, you do one or two things. You can add a plot arc and a theme, or you can cast an actor and write the synopsis for the season, whatever you feel like. But you do one or two things. If you're the producer, you're developing an episode, and that means you'll mainly be doing things that are like at the top part of the episode, but you can also write a summary for a scene. That's also part of what you can do. And same thing there, you do one or two things. And if you're a lowly staff writer, you get to develop a scene. So you pick any scene in any episode and you can write the summary, you can add plot beats, you can decide locations and characters, that sort of thing. Same thing, you do one or two things. And one thing I should be very clear about is that the hierarchy, you don't need to build this top down. You don't need to have a synopsis for the episode to start writing scenes. You don't need to have a summary for a scene to add like plot beats. You can just know that, oh, at the end of episode 3, I want this one thing to happen. And maybe you don't know the whole context of it, but I know one thing that I want to get in there. Maybe these two characters have a fight, and that's the thing that I want to put in there. Scene numbering 1, 2, 3, 5. No, scenes are numbered 1, 2, 3. The episodes are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think there's a scene 5, unless I missed something.
Yeah, I'm looking at the templates sheet here.
Oh, ignore the templates.
Okay.
Those are wrong.
Okay. That's
they're old. That's the tab. That's ignore.
Okay.
We're on the main. We should be on the main tab and the cast
Okay.
tab, obviously for casting. So yeah, let's get started. I think you're up, right, Jim?
Sure. So let's start as the showrunner. I want the show to start like the first scene to be in medias res, right? With where we have all of our principals in a situation that is clearly a problem, and then we do that very cliched thing where we spend the season working our way back to, we do a cold open with them all in trouble, and then there's some kind of cliffhanger. We cut to the opening title, and then we spend the 5 episodes of the season working our way back to that situation, and we see how it resolves at the end of the show, at the end of those 5 episodes, so that we get a nice little going in.
So do you want to write that as the synopsis? Maybe for the season?
Yeah, I can put that in there. Sure.
Cool. I'll take my turn while Jim is doing that, if that's okay with you, Jim. Cool. I think then I'm not sure what I want to do. I usually default to casting just because I enjoy making up characters. Maybe I should do that. I will think like we have the captain. We have type A high achiever. We have the Klingon, who's a little bit of fish out of water character. I think we need someone nice and friendly here among the cadets. Someone who can be like the glue a bit. And I'm looking for a face because I need a face for my characters. Think maybe some, but still is. Someone easygoing. I'll stop looking for faces. I'll put in easygoing, friendly cadet. Who, let's see, talented, but not sloppy or undisciplined, but
indecisive.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Indecisive, yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to add for that person right now. So I've done a casting decision. So I am doing develop series and season. I think um, one of the plot arcs here is the captain dealing with their trauma from the Dominion War. Yeah, so those were my two things. Gabe.
Okay, great. Yeah, let me think. Um, do names count as casting? I assume so. Is that, or is it just
Absolutely,
an
that's part of casting.
okay?
Um,
Would going back and adding names to characters that are unnamed be a thing? I don't care either way, but
yeah, you can pick a character and add however many things you want to add to that character,
okay, cool.
and that's
Um,
one of your things.
okay, yeah, great. Let's see. I'm going to okay, so I'm gonna make the plot arc. I realize we only have two characters. I'll pull to see if this is okay. I like the idea of because the kind of high achiever character, seemingly human uh character has like a companionship as one of their dramatic hooks. So I think
Hmm.
maybe like a romantic relationship between them and potentially the Klingon character, potentially another character could be interesting, especially if it's like um later on in the series it turns out that like the high achiever character got like a really desirable post, whereas their partner or their
Ooh,
partner got like some kind of like crappy position and that causes some kind of conflict between them.
yeah.
Um,
You can put that in as however you want to describe that. Um, you can do a detailed description or just a rough like romantic subplot between
yeah.
this character and some other character, however you want to do it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna name I'm gonna name the if it's okay, I'm gonna name the high
Yeah.
achiever character
Oh,
um
I should say, I just took the face. She doesn't have to be human.
okay.
If you prefer to cast her as some sort of non-human, that's perfectly fine with me.
I like the idea of keeping her human although maybe she could be like half alien. I don't know. I've never understood how half species work in Star Trek, but
It
I'll name
Well,
her
when
oh
a
yeah.
mommy alien and a daddy Earthling love each other very much, Gabe.
Can
it's
I
fantasy genetics basically. Humans can
could
mate with anything. That's kind of
Yeah.
how it works.
could I make a suggestion with regards to the captain? I've just thought. Is there any way we could make her Trill?
Can we wait
Oh,
since we're
sorry. Yeah,
talking about
sorry.
another
Oh yeah.
character?
I thought we. Sorry, I thought we were talking about the captain's race there for a second. I
Oh yeah.
misunderstood. Sorry.
All good, all good. Uh I'm gonna name the high achiever character Vara Wyrick. And we'll say I'll add the plot arc. Vara romances another cadet. She gets a desirable position, partner gets like a crappy position.
Baro Wyrick is a very Star Trek sounding name. That's
Yeah.
that's on point for a Star Trek character.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
And definitely not a Star Wars name, which is weird. I've never understood how you tell the difference, but you definitely can.
Trek names have a lot of V's and apostrophes, and Star Wars names have a lot of X's and like single syllable then multiple syllables.
Yeah,
Jack
that's
Speedo is like a Star Wars
Yes,
name.
exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Vara Wyrick is a Trek name for sure. Yeah.
cool. Thank you. Gerwin.
I would actually like to add to the cast as well.
Hmm.
I would actually like to add a a cadet, Siobhan Cochran. Siobhan is a very talented member of the security team. She has very good skills when it comes to the security related things. There's only one problem. Everyone expects her to be an engineer. Everyone keeps on trying to push her towards being an engineer. She is not an engineer.
Cool. Cool. You can go ahead and add her to the cast page, cast tab. If you're happy there, then we're moving back to Jim.
That's fantastic. The Cochrane thing is great. I love that. So, Gerwin, you asked something about making the captain a Trill. I do not want to make the captain a Trill. I explicitly want the captain to be a Bajoran, because there's like all kind, like she was she was like an insurgent until like they needed her skills in the Dominion War. And then she's not an insurgent. Now she's an actual soldier with actual rank and respect and all this kind of stuff and everything. And so, the trauma, not just of, and now we're like allies with the Cardassians and all that kind of stuff and everything because of the Dominion War and all that stuff, like whatever they were, they were devastated and all that. So I like her being like explicitly Bajoran. I love the idea of a professor who's a Trill. And the symbiote is like a centuries old, foremost, like galaxy acknowledged expert in whatever the subject is in the body of like a 22-year-old.
Could I counter? Because
sure.
I'll go. Well, I'll explain my rationale.
Yep.
I had this lovely idea of, you've got the high achieving character and you've got their companion, the person in a relationship with. But if you have a high-ranking, very experienced Trill, and that Trill gets hurt, gets potentially killed on the actual on a mission, on something happens, then if there's only one other Trill on the ship that can actually take that symbiote, you then have the partner who suddenly has to have that Trill taken onto them and joined with them, becomes super competent, and then it provides another avenue of actual conflict for the hyper competent character that we've already got there.
That's interesting, but that experienced Trill doesn't have to be the captain. It could be someone else, like the chief engineer or someone.
Okay. So that's fine. I was just explaining my rationale for suggesting the captain. So in which case then, sorry, it's your go at the moment, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, back to you.
Yeah, so just, if we can just talk a little, I not to sidetrack too much, but I get a little nervous when we're talking about the Trill and symbiotes in questions of consent, and explicitly the there's a symbiote, there's only one person that is compatible with it, and if you don't say yes, it's going to die. And so you must consent to having your consciousness sublimated or taken over or sharing it or whatever to, and if you don't, then, this centuries old being is gonna perish. And so I like, that's a thing that just makes me feel a little, the thing where like you take it on for a little while, you risk getting sick and maybe dying so that it can live. That's different than like, that feels like a little different thing to me.
I'll actually be honest, Jim, I've never thought about that, and it makes a great deal of sense what you're actually saying. I've never actually considered it from that angle, and thinking about it, no, you're 100% right with that.
It's a fascinating species, and I love the idea that there's this like very, kind of drawn out process for if you willingly want to do it, we test you. But part of the test is to make sure, I've always thought part of the test is to make sure, no kidding, do you really consent to this? Is this really what you want? Because you understand you're not going to be you after it's over. You're going to be you plus something else, but it's hard to say what's going on with that. And so having that like as a side plot or something like that, I'm cool with that, but it's not necessarily something I
No. I think
comfortable with
the philosophical implications of that is something that would make a perfect Star Trek episode.
Yeah,
I actually think that makes it. I think that makes it more interesting as a concept rather than just what's going on.
Yeah,
That's the sort of thing that the best episodes of Star Trek are built around.
and I mean, and I think like a fascinating kind of symbiote trill thing is we've never like whenever they have a symbiote, it's always just like it's whatever. It's like some squicky looking bug, right? That's in a a tube full of amniotic fluid or something like that. And we don't ever get them communicating with the symbiote directly when it's not in a body. And I would love an episode that turns out to be like a symbiote saying, "No, I will die before you put me in someone that does not consent to having me put there." Or who is unsuitable and we know will only live for 6 hours if you put me in there. Do not. I would rather die than do that.
Cool. It's your go, Jim.
Sorry, going off
No,
topic.
I love the discussion.
Let's have that. So then I want that as an episode. I love that. So where are we doing our individual episodes? Is that on the main?
Yeah, that's on the main tab. If you want to write a synopsis for an episode, that sounds suitable for this.
Here we go. So our A plot in that episode, because we all know that every episode of Star Trek has an A plot, a B plot, and maybe a C plot, but at least an A plot and a B plot. So I'm going to make that episode 3 when we've had a chance to get to know some of the characters and stuff like that. And like maybe this is one of those things where we have a relatively well-known famous actor playing whomever is that symbiote. And that's when we shockingly get rid of them halfway through the season. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's, and so, okay, so I'm going to write that up and let's see. I think we are going to call that. Just going to call that episode Choices. It's a very Star Trek-y sort of a punchy Star Trek title for the episode. And then I'll write up the synopsis for it, and you guys can go ahead and move on to the next person here, Anders.
Cool. Then it is my turn. I'm going to add something to this cold open. I'm going to add a couple of plot beats to the first scene there, where we have this problem showing up. I don't know exactly what the problem is going to be, but I do know that we'll have one of the beats here is going to be flashing lights and smoke while the bridge shakes. That's definitely going to happen. And I think we have the captain ordering what would you say it, calling code red or something, the equivalent of that. I'm not sure what that would be in Star Trek terms.
Red alert, I think, is what you're looking
Red
for.
alert, yeah. Calling a red alert. Those were my things. Gabe.
Awesome. Yeah, let's see. I'm so excited about the show already. Hmm. Yeah, I think one of the plot threads I'm gonna add a plot thread to probably episode 4. And yeah, I'm gonna I think I'm gonna just say oh, okay, this is what episode 4. Episode 4 I think is going to be um where all of the test results from the like the academy come in. And so we have like the all of the maybe all of the plots for the episode are related to basically all of the different cadets reacting to their test results. So one of the plot threads is obviously um I think maybe so the synopsis is cadets get their results back from uh the academy about their like posts, that they've been assigned after they graduate. Um, and one of the plot threads is um, Vara's partner like flips out and I don't know. I don't know. Is there a way for? I assume there's some way for people to like uh, leave the ship or take a. Is there like a way for people to take a shuttle and just like leave, or is that something in Star Trek?
Yeah,
If you need that to be a thing, then it's a thing.
All right,
I mean
yeah.
they
So
have
I think
shuttles. That's a thing, definitely.
okay, I think that yeah, so I think Vara's partner flips out and like abandons ship essentially to go, I don't know, maybe they'll come back in the season finale, but we don't know.
Cool. If you feel like you're done there, we can move on to Gerwin.
Okay. I think I'd actually like to put a scene forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be an introductory thing, introducing some of our characters, and I think it's on a shuttle. Yeah, coming basically them boarding a shuttle in San Francisco. You see the actual building behind. You have everyone bumping into each other. It's like it's a load of new people. They've got their bags with them, uh, and they're all piling onto the shuttle. And the shuttle takes off, and the engine breaks down in low orbit. And you've got all the cadets there, basically with this one pilot officer who's trying to get it fixed, squabbling amongst themselves, actually all getting in each other's way, trying to fix it. So you've got Siobhan there that they hear her name Cochrane and they're all expecting her to go and fix the shuttle, and she's telling them, what do I know about engines? What do I know about impulse engines? I don't know anything about impulse engines. And you've got the other people who are trying to prove their competency and basically getting in the way and making things worse. And eventually they get it sorted, and they get the shuttle working. And as the shuttle's working, we get the shot of the ship in the space dock as they're coming in. So we actually have them squabbling, and there's that look from the outside of the windscreen of the shuttle. So you've got them there, and they stop. They all look, and one of them taps them on their shoulder. The other one looks around, and they all turn and look. And then there's this panning shot of the ship
So,
sitting there in space dock.
cool. So it sounds like you want to write a scene summary and maybe add a plot beat to that, or just write a couple of plot beats.
I'll write a scene summary and put a plot beat in there as well, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely. So is this like the scene after the cold open of the first episode?
This is the scene after the cold open of the first episode.
Cool. So we're in scene two of episode 1.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I didn't realize the actual cold open was going to be scene 1.
Yeah, that's how I imagined it, at least.
Okay. Okay. There we go.
Cool. Yeah, we're back to Jim.
All right, I'm going to make a character. And our character, let's see here. Get to our character is I think I'm going to call him Joe. Just one word, Joe. Joe is a Gorn who is a nurse, who wants to train to be a nurse. And he calls him, like, they call themselves Joe. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to make it J-O, because that is the gender neutral Joe. You know, and like, because you always got to have the first whatever, right? So this is the first Gorn that they've accepted into Starfleet Academy, and like they were happy to be rid of them because they have like no interest in like Gorn warrior culture or anything like this, and their fascination with, you know, the idea of medicine as a thing. And like, you know, because the Gorn are just like, you know, just this like warrior species, like, you know, and, you know, examining the idea of like them, like, you know, fish out of water in their own culture, but also all these expectations that Earth culture would have of them and stuff like that. And that like, and you talk about Gerwin, that thing where you're like, you know, because your name is Cochrane, people expect that you're going to be, you know, you're going to be an engineer. Everyone looks like a Gorn joining Starfleet, and like they want them to be in security, right? Or, you know, tactical or something like that. And they assume that's what their interest is in. And like, I kind of love the idea that they're just this like total pacifist, completely, you know, interested in, like, just fascinated by the very idea that rather than just shoot somebody when they're hurt, you actually fix them. And like how miraculous that is for, you know, an idea in Gorn culture. So that's our character there. So that's, and, you know, and it's going to be, and I want like, you know, big budget, practical effects on this, you know, and this is like not a CGI Gorn, but a like, you know, like we spent like, but a, you know, like this actor is willing to spend, you know, 4 hours a day in the makeup chair to, you know, to be on Star Trek, kind of a thing. So that's what, so there we go. And the actor is, you know, going to be somebody who, you know, is like an Andy Serkis type or something, you know, that is known for like doing those kind of roles and stuff like that. So I'm going to put Andy Serkis, Andy Serkis alike is what I'm going to put there for our cast member, and then I'll go find I'll write up a little synopsis and I'll go find a picture of a Gorn for that.
Cool. I'm going to be the showrunner now, and I'm going to add a theme to the season of subverting expectations, because that seems to be something we have going on here on multiple fronts. And let's see. I think another theme is I'm trying to figure out how to word this, but or express it. Finding the awe in the unknown is, or finding the joy and awe because we have several characters now who are like either leaving they're leaving their home culture and going somewhere else. We have some who are a bit rigid and that sort of thing. And I think having this and also going like with the general themes of Star Trek. Cool. Gabe.
Okay, let's see. Hmm. Sorry, I'm just thinking about what what best to do. Maybe I'll also do showrunner. Um, yeah, I think episode two, I might add some themes or plot threads to that. I think episode two would be interesting if because it seems like episode one is kind of setting up the premise of the show that it's these cadets on this, uh, kind of got to prove themselves on this old rundown ship. And then episode two maybe would be interesting to focus on that idea of like people trying to make the cut, so we see all of the kind of cadets start to try to prove themselves. And maybe I don't know how they would do this, but maybe they randomly assign people to different jobs on the ship, and then like where they're cycling through different jobs over the course of whatever weeks or months. And so we could see kind of maybe we cut between that and then like the professors or the administrative people, the people who are supposed to be evaluating their performance, kind of meeting. Maybe we could have one of the scenes be like a meeting where they evaluate. We like they talk through like some of the characters that we've seen. Let me write that in the synopsis. Um, but yeah, so the synopsis will be first weeks or months on the. Do we have a name for this ship, by the way? I don't think so. We'll say just first weeks or months on the ship. Cadets cycled through different jobs to various, effects, um, and administrators slash teachers, I'll say mentors, administrators slash mentors meet and discuss characters, the main cast's performance. And then I'll put uh, hmm, maybe I'll leave it at just the one. If I think of a title, I might add one, but I'll pass for now.
Cool. Gerwin.
I'm going to add a character, and the character is the ship.
Yeah.
The character is the ambassador class USS Kamehameha, named after the first king of Hawaii that united the islands. So it's an older ship. It's not up to date. It doesn't have all the mod cons. It had to have holodecks retrofitted in, and nothing works quite as it should, and it's always breaking down in little bits. It's more labor intensive than a normal ship, and that basically means that when the cadets muck up, there's always a job for them to be assigned when they haven't quite followed what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I'll add that to the character tab.
Excellent. Jim.
Like I feel like do we just call the show Starfleet Academy, or do we call it like Star Trek Cadets or something like that, or what is the I'm actually going to think on that. Let me do something. Oh, you know what I can do is I can do our elevator pitch. And our elevator pitch is the future officers of Starfleet come together. Okay, so our elevator pitch is the elevator pitch is Starfleet Academy in space. That's the elevator pitch for this show. That it's like Starfleet Academy, but don't worry, they're going to be on a starship and doing cool starship stuff. It's not a CW show, where they just happen to have comm badges on. It's still a Star Trek show. So that's our Starfleet Academy in space is our like one sentence, our one sentence pitch. And then like, and I think we just call the show, what do we want to call the show? Star Trek something. Let me think about it. Move on to the next person, and I'll come up with something.
That would be me. And I'm trying to figure out, I want to cast this, the Trill Professor. And I'm trying to figure out what kind of, because here we want a well-known actor. I'm trying to figure out someone who has the dramatic range needed for this part. They should be able to be funny, but definitely have like the pathos of this dying scene, the death scene, and choosing not to do that. And I mean, there are plenty of actors who could do that, but I'm not sure. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Whoops, I'm forgetting names, so I need to look things up. Maybe Gillian Anderson. I think she could do it.
Oh, definitely.
She could be she can definitely be funny, and she could be yeah, she could be a good professor, and she can do I think she has the dramatic chops. I'll cast her. Let's see if I did this right. Gillian Anderson. She's the Trill Professor who dies in episode 3. That's not a very interesting description, but that's what I've got for now. Yeah, I'll leave the name for someone who is better with these names. So that means I did some casting. I think I'm going to maybe a plot arc. No, I don't have anything obvious, so I'll pass for now. Gabe.
Okay. Let's see. By the way, I added a title to episode 2, if that's okay. So trials, so as part of my last turn, um, to fit with Jim's choices.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's still, um, hmm.
Yeah, we're coming up on the hour, so you take your turn, and Gerwin, you take your turn, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back. Yeah.
I'm gonna do a scene. I'll do scene. We'll say this is scene 2 or 3. I'll say scene 2 on episode 2, because I want to bring in the plot arc of the captain dealing with their trauma from the Dominion War. Um, and we'll say this is set at the bar or whatever. Um, and so the characters will be the captain, the dean, and some other kind of administrator. So maybe the Gorn nurse, or did you intend for the Gorn nurse to be like training to be a nurse, or like already
Yeah,
established as?
they're a student. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, cool. Maybe then
sorry, they're a cadet. Yeah.
I gotcha. Then
Mhm.
maybe well, I'll say another administrator of some sort, maybe the troll professor. Um, but the summary is like basically maybe the oh, is that okay? Is that okay? I guess maybe I'll just leave it at that. And if it's is that two? That's two things, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
It's
Okay.
definitely the professor, because as soon as you announced in advance that Gillian Anderson and Charlize Theron were on this show,
Yeah,
there were fans writing fan fiction about the two of
yeah,
them,
yeah.
like before the show even started. So yeah, that's I think that's going to happen. I think.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll leave that scene as a yeah, good chance for them to interact and maybe talk about the Dominion War or something.
cool. Gerwin, you're muted.
Damn it, you can tell I've not been doing this for a while. I would like to add something to scene 3 for episode 2,
Mm-hmm.
which is I'd like to add Vara finding a diary for hidden on in her bunk from the ship before, when it was actually still an active ship during the Cardassian border wars.
Ooh.
And the diary basically is laying out alterations that were made during wartime that are effective but very, very dangerous. And given that given that we've got them going through the different things and going through different grading, I think there's that aspect of she needs to bring up her engineering grade, so she starts using some of these shortcuts to make things happen quicker.
Very cool. Yeah. Once you feel you've got that down, we'll take a break. And since I want to leave the last half hour for discussion and feedback and that sort of thing, we'll come back at, let's say, 5 past, and we'll play until half past, and then we'll do discussion after that. I will pause the recording, and we'll back in about 5 minutes.
Emperor has no problem with mines.
Cool. So we've got about another 20 minutes. And Jim, you're up.
Star Trek Cadets. That's what our show is named.
Cool.
I've made that call.
Yep.
So we've got trials, we've got choices, results from the academy, the posting after they graduate. I think episode 2, I want a scene that is outside the holodeck. And the characters are every cadet we've met so far. Summary, just like quick cuts of them walking out of the holodeck after they've taken the Kobayashi Maru test. And like, we don't actually see any of those Kobayashi Maru scenarios or anything like that. We just see them like their various reactions.
Yeah.
And because like everybody who is any kind of a like Star Trek fan knows what the Kobayashi Maru is. They understand the point of it is that it's not a tactical test, it's a psych test. And just to see and like knowing that that's going on, and like letting us imagine what they each individually went through and what they did to try and solve it. Especially in an episode that we're calling Trials.
Yeah.
And maybe that's our cold open, is we just see them one by one just walking out. And maybe at the very end of it, like they walk out, they say something to the captain, she nods, and and there's some kind of an unexpected reaction from like whatever the last cadet that walks out is.
I really like the idea of the Klingon cadet bringing another actually side of it that no one's actually thought of. And the Klingon cadet actually having done the best out of everyone there as a result of understanding
I think that's
Klingon philosophy.
That's cool. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's good.
All right. Okay.
Cool.
So yeah.
Oh,
so I'll go ahead and write that up. Yeah.
Yeah. And people who don't know Star Trek that well, they will like get the gist of it from how the
that it's some kind
do.
of an impossible test, and and like whomever we've introduced as like in the first episode as the most cocky, I got this character, will just be walking out of it like shell shocked. So
Yeah.
I have to admit, I thought the cold open for the series was actually going to be the crew taking the Kobayashi Maru when we actually got to episode 5.
Well, and that's a little bit of misdirection, right? Because people maybe think that that's what's going on, but then when you throw that at them in episode 2, they're like, "Oh, it's not going to be there. It's not their Kobayashi Maru. It's an actual thing." And so that's a little bit of like Trek fan misdirection there. So I think that's great.
Cool.
Excellent.
I'm going to name the season finale Decisions to go with the naming theme here. And I think the very first plot beat of the first scene is we're back to the flashing lights and smoke on the bridge. Because that was the whole thing. We're going back to see how everything. Those were my things. Gabe.
Okay, let me think. Yeah, okay, let me see. I think um hmm, maybe the last scene or the second scene. I think the last scene probably. The last scene of the show, I think should be I'll put the summary as like while it looks like the ambassador ship as the USS Kamehameha is about to be like destroyed by I think probably they're under attack by some kind of uh they accidentally come upon like some like isolationist planet or something. But I won't add that. But that's my current idea in my head. But I think that the idea will be that the whoever left like Avara's partner who like abandoned ship because of their um because they flunked out or whatever, they come back with some kind of maybe it's a some kind of force from a local like friendly like Federation friendly person, so they like obviously they save in the nick of time. um and I think maybe I'm leaning towards Vara's partner being the Klingon character.
Sure.
Let's
Um,
see. Yeah.
this doesn't really change what you were saying. Um, I think I just like the solution to the problem to not be violence. Like I'm fine with there being a misunderstanding and there being some sort of fight. But I think I'd like the solution to not be like, oh, now we're stronger than you are, we can beat you.
I think that makes
But
sense. Yeah. Let me think about that. I think that yeah, could I think through this for a second, or I don't want to hold
yeah,
anybody up.
absolutely, absolutely. We you can come back to it if you want to.
Okay, yeah, I think that okay, yeah. I'll
It could still be that they are arriving with some other people that they have picked up, but maybe that's. I don't want to go all over you here. It was just that I feel like
no,
having
you're
a
totally right. I see your point. I think that the idea that Gerwin had about the Kobayashi Maru, because I think the I just had to Wikipedia it, but the Kobayashi Maru is like an old like dates back to the era when the Klingons were at war with the Federation. So I think it makes sense that like the Klingon character would be able to maybe negotiate something or be able to somehow diffuse the situation in a way because we think of Klingons as being like warlike, so maybe because they understand more about Klingon culture, they're able to diffuse the situation in a way that so maybe that actually is how they save the day in this one is that they're actually able to even though the aggressor might not be Klingon. Maybe I'll add this to the the episode summary instead. Um,
cool.
but decisions will be some kind of aggressive isolationist force starts aggressive isolationist planet starts firing on the Kamehameha. Uh, but I think perhaps they get some kind of signal. Maybe it turns out that they've kind of somehow transgressed on like a spiritual thing, or they've um, or maybe even something that they did in a previous episode on like a planet in that star system has upset their like their religion, and so the I won't get into the specifics of how they solve it, but it ends up that that Vara's partner with potentially the help of some Federation people end up being able to defuse the situation.
I
That's good.
quite can I. Oh, I'm tempted to add something here and if sorry, and then I quite like the idea of the opponents being the Gorn, and then the Gorn nurse and Vara's partner basically coming together to actually work out something based around the Gorn religion that allows them to stop the fighting and to get away.
Oh, that's really good. You can add that. It's your go. So
Uh, it Yeah, I will add that. I was going to add a conduit explosion on episode 3 to injure the troll caused by Vara's modifications, but I will wait and see if I get another go around. But I will add the scene 3 is what's Vara's partner's name? Do we have one yet?
I don't think so, but maybe something like Orvog or something.
Okay.
Cool. Are you happy there, Gerwin?
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Then it's back to Jim.
All right. In episode 3, I want to have a scene that takes place in sick bay with our Gorn nurse, whose name is it's Joe. Joe, our Gorn nurse. And the Hollow Doctor. And this is where we can either bring actual Robert Picardo in, or like actually make this an actual hologram, because he is supposed to be a hologram, but please state the nature of the medical emergency, right? And this is where Joe like kind of first absorbs the idea of triage, right? That and it will reflect that thing that's going on separately with the with the trail and stuff like this, and that maybe in the early in the episode he learns about triage, and then later in the episode when we have that thing with the the trail, that can be where he's like, oh my god, I just learned about this, and now I have to make these decisions to help my patients make these decisions and stuff like that. So I want that early scene where it's Joe and the Hollow Doctor. Summary is the doctor teaches Joe about triage, and and with all the zeal of a convert, Joe having trouble adjusting to the idea, well, no, don't you do everything you possibly can to try and save everybody? And and the doctor saying, well, sometimes we don't have the resources to do that. You have to decide. And this will be the most important decision you ever make as a Starfleet medical officer, and blah 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 and stuff like that. We'll give the opportunity to kind of do some of that. I feel like mentoring is going to be a big part of this show. Star Trek has always been about competence porn, right? And so that passing of knowledge down to the cadets, I would love to see it kind of permeate the whole show. And I think this is a scene where we can convey some of that.
Cool. I'm going to add some stuff to scene 1 of the finale. I think there's a moment here where the dean is not offline. So the cadets don't have that safety net. They're the dean is always there, and now he's not. And I think also at some point here, the indecisive cadet acts decisively, having overcome that, or at least for this moment, they take decisive action. Gabe.
Great. Yeah, I let's see. Okay. I'm gonna add that description back to the bar scene with the captain, dean, and the trail professor. And I think yeah, I think that the summary is the captain is exhausted after is kind of is exhausted, maybe a little bit discouraged after seeing all of the cadets like basically be bummed out after failing a test that it's impossible to actually succeed at, you know. Um, uh, and so maybe the Trill professor, Gillian Anderson's character, is kind of they strike up a conversation, and the captain ends up sharing kind of a pretty like intense, like traumatic story about their experiences during the Dominion War. And you know, if they lost like a close, you know, friend or family member, or the things that they had seen, maybe if they witnessed any kind of
like
this is getting
a
a little
whole
bit.
friggin' ship, maybe. You know.
Yeah, a whole friggin' yeah. And I think I'll have that be the summary. And then the dialogue, I'll add something along the lines of like, do we have like, is it right for us to be training these kids to go do that, you know, to go die potentially? Um,
Yeah,
it's kind of serious, but you know, I don't know. For the working with that theme of trauma after war, you know.
absolutely. That's great. Gerwin.
Okay, I'm gonna add a scene to episode 3. Oh, 1 second. Scene 2 of episode 3. One of Vara's repairs that she did that bypassed systems goes wrong and causes an explosion on the ship that severely injures and potentially kills some of the cadets and staff.
Mm-hmm.
So what should we have this be? Should we have a turbo lift accident, or
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I'm trying to think of how we do this. Do we set this in a classroom, or is it a turbo lift accident? And
Well, what's the? I mean, how do you? I mean, do you want it to be something they can't easily like get away from? Do you want them to be stuck for a little while, or is it just like a thing that like blows up and everybody's upset, or what's it?
just the thing that happens, but it needs to have several people in close proximity. So it's a case of we could have a hallway. Oh, actually, the cadets are doing marches and jogs around the hallway to help with their physical training. So you've basically got them actually marching through the hallways and the like, and we've got the scene actually laying into that. And we keep on having them run past, and it keeps on showing this panel, and it zooms in and then zooms inside the panel.
Yeah.
And
little sparks start coming out of it or something.
Sparks coming out of it, a little bit of smoke. Then it cuts to some of the cadets running, and it gives this really humanizing moment as they're chatting. One of them's falling behind, and he's trying to actually get them. They're trying to get them to come on. They all group up together. They're running together to help get this one last cadet over the finish line. And as they get close, there's a shower of sparks, and they all end up going to sickbay.
Yeah, that's great.
But I think the troll professor also was passing and basically stood aside to let them pass. So that's how the troll professor actually gets injured as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I like that. Yeah, we have a couple more minutes before the time limit, so let's do one more go around. So Jim, your last turn.
My last turn. Let's see. Let me see here. We've got we've got decisions, choices, trials, choices. I'm gonna call our first episode Arrivals. And the synopsis of it is we meet the cadets and learn where they are from and why they want to be in Starfleet. Just our kind of standard introductory, an introductory episode kind of thing. And I think like we don't have a lot of conflict. We do have that scene in the shuttle going to the ship where the shuttle breaks down and then they squabble amongst themselves on how to repair the impulse engines. I do think that one of the beats on scene, one of the beats in scene 2 is we get our very first, we get our first sense of who clicks and who doesn't, right? I mean, I think that, it's one thing when they're all saying hello to each other and, whatever, bumping fists when they're climbing onto the shuttle in the first place. But that very first crisis that they experience together, I think that's when we'll get our first sense of, oh, these two, they fall right in line with each other. These two are loggerheads the whole time. And so we can know going forward that those are some of the things we're going to look for.
Very cool. My last turn. I just thought of a line for this. I'm still working on the first scene of the final episode. I think the captain is going to say, "I'm not losing this ship." Yeah, I think that's it. That's my thing. Gabe.
I'm gonna add. I'm gonna create a scene 3 of episode 1, and I think this is gonna be our big uh beaming down onto the planet scene. So this is supposed to be like your very easy it's like gathering readings on an Earth-like planet with no known predator macrofauna or anything like that. And so, but they are broken into teams. So we kind of see an extension of scene 2. So we see Vara and Orvog getting along very well despite being from very different cultures, but maybe we see some of the other characters, maybe the Gorn nurse and some of the other characters don't really understand each other as well, stuff like that. But yeah, so that's that scene.
Very cool. Gerwin, you get the final go.
Okay, let's have a look. Okay, I'm sorry, Jim. I misread the actual synopsis for episode 3 with regards to the Trill getting injured. I really should have done that. I'm sorry about that.
Oh no! If we have them get hurt in a previous episode and they're fine, and then later something, and everybody breathes a sigh of relief that they're going to be okay, and then later on they're they get
not fine.
They're not fine, yeah. Or we can. Oh no, we're good. That's good on episode 3. That's fine. That totally works. That totally works. Let me get rid of stranded on a mission. The Trill Professor is hurt.
Like I say, I'm sorry. I went into it without reading the synopsis.
No, that's cool.
It was entirely on me.
The Trill Professor's hurt, and no cadets are fully compatible. There we go. All right. No, I like that.
I think I'm going to put a scene for episode 4 with the cadets getting their results from the academy, about their postings for after they graduate. I think this is the episode where we bust out some of the actual characters from Star Trek past. So who should we have show up? Because we know O'Brien's teaching at Starfleet Academy at this point. But also, I really like the idea of Bashir showing up and talking to the Gorn, because I think that would actually be a really interesting pairing.
Yeah, he'd be there with his husband Garrick.
Oh, no! I think we definitely
just make that canon and be done with it, you cowards.
It's kind of is already kind of sort of canon, but I think the captain asks him about his honeymoon as part of the actual introduction and the small talk as a result, but yeah, I think we're gonna have Bashir show up and basically introduce the medical characters to the future postings and take them through what life's like on the frontier as a frontier Starfleet doctor, rather than one actually on one of the more centralized planets.
Cool. And that's the game. Cool. I'll let everyone finish up their the bits there. Right,
we're calling episode 4 results.
Yeah,
cool.
definitely.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So obviously we had a bit shorter playtime than the actual session time, but I think we've done enough for you to get a feel for how things work. I'm going to start with you, Gabe. Any kind of feedback, any thoughts, anything you feel is too much or too little? Yeah, whatever you want.
Sure. Yeah. No, I had a lot of fun with this. This is really cool. It was great. I mean, I was surprised by how much I understood about everything, despite not being as in tune with Star Trek as a lot as some people. But no, it was great. I really enjoyed the collaboration aspect, and I think like being able to pull people. I played a little bit of Microscope in the past, but being able to pull people or kind of talk with like people about what's going on is cool because I still felt like I was able to introduce ideas or people were able to introduce really cool ideas. And it was a lot of fun to be able to build on other people's ideas or see people build on my ideas. So that was a lot of fun. Rules wise, it's really simple. And I appreciate that. Like, I think it's really easy to like understand. I did feel like sometimes I had the urge to like do one thing in the showrunner category and do one thing in like the episode category.
Yeah.
And so like that was a little bit not constraining, but it was just a little bit of more rigid than like more something more freeform. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but that was just what I thought. But yeah, but I had a great time, so I'm really glad I participated in this.
Yeah. Thank you. Gerwin.
I, on the other hand, have never played Microscope, so I had no idea what I was coming into. I love the collaborative nature of it. The fact that discussion between Jim and myself about the trill and Jim rightly calling me on the trope that was used. I'd never actually thought about the consent issues there, but you're right. That is a huge thing. I've taken something out of this as a result, but I love the way that I like the fact that we can't make sweeping changes all in one go, because I think the trouble you have is you have this idea of what you want it to be, and you just go bang 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 and limit it to little aspects of it and add into what's already there. I think encourages the collaborative nature of it. While the whole thing of being limited by what you can do as a showrunner and what you can do as the producer and the episode writer puts limits on it. I think limitations in a lot of ways are a good thing, because it actually, limitation breeds creativity and creates collaboration. Whereas if you have too much freedom, you run the risk of dominating just a single episode with what you actually want. It is a bit time consuming though, background, because I love the conversations, but the conversations basically take up time in these games. But that's part of the game. So I'm happy where we got to. And like I say, with a little bit longer, I think we could have filled out the entire season. The only thing I'm seeing is I really wish I'd actually thought about the scenes and actually had quips, one-liners, and actually more of a visualization of the scene rather than the overall flow of it. So I don't know if it would be an idea to do scenes and then go into the scenes afterwards to actually add aspects to the scenes and actually add decoration. But like I say, I say that as someone who's never played Microscope, so I don't know what the expectation is in that. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, this was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed this. I've played in 4, maybe 5 Star Trek role-playing campaigns of one kind or another. And this is kind of like replicates some of the process that we do at the beginning when we're putting a campaign together. But I love this. This was one of the things that I find frustrating about Microscope out of the box as written is that there's 2 things that are frustrating. One is that it's a great big blank sheet of paper when you start the game, right? And unless you really are like, okay, we want this specific kind of game that's going to do this. Setting it in Star Trek, and I could see the same thing if you're like, we're going to do a modern superhero story. We're going to do a Star Wars thing. We're going to do a, whatever. It's we're putting this in the Buffyverse or something. That immediately gives you some guardrails that then lets you fruitfully, like there's enough, Star Trek is a huge enough property that like we can all come up with all kinds of crazy crap, but it's within, but we're not gonna like we know we're not 20,000 years in the future or whatever, or we're in, we're the whatever, slamming beers with Zephram Cochrane or something like that. Like we kind of put the guardrails on it, and then there's a lot of possibility within that, and that makes it much, much easier than, because there is, boy, when you start a game of Microscope from scratch, even though you've done the we want to have clones, but no unicorns, but like that kind of thing, it's still really hard to to generate that momentum to actually get going. And putting some constraints around this was super, super helpful in that regard. And the other thing I love is that the episode structure deals with the other problem, which is even if you know what you're doing in Microscope, the scenes kind of don't, like, you drill down into a scene and you kind of invest all this energy in like, we're to create this character and it's in this location and it's this important thing that's happening in the timeline. And then we just kind of noodle around with it for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour. And then you pull back out of the timeline and like, you may never refer to that again. And so the sense of cohesion of that has always frustrated me about that. Like, I want to I made this cool character, I want to bring them back. Well, no, because that's just a tiny little blip on our 8,000 year timeline or whatever, 50,000 or 2 million year timeline that we're playing out. And so why would we go back to that particular slave revolt when we've got, first contact with the aliens, 300 years later kind of thing. And this constraints here are super, super helpful in that. And just for what it's worth, for the 3 hours that we had, 5 episodes felt perfect to me. Like, I have a real sense of what's going on. 5 is enough for us to actually do some stuff and therefore there to be actual arcs, but not so much that, like, if we're doing 8 episodes, and certainly if we're doing something like 10, we would be looking at that thing going like, well, we've got something for episodes 1, 3, 7, 9, and whatever, and a title for 10, but there's these others that we haven't, and for the amount of time we had, 5 felt like it was right on the money, Andrew. So for whatever that's worth, I had a great time, and I felt like it fit, it slotted just really nicely into the amount of time that we had.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I think maybe if everyone knew the game and we were playing for a full 3 hours, then maybe 7 episodes, or like having more scenes per episode or something. But I think for the playtest, I think this has turned out to be a good amount. I wanted to say, Gabe, you said about like, yeah, you're restricted to doing like, I want to do this thing, and then I have a limited choice of other things. That's partly that was just from because that's how Microscope works, because you do one thing and then you can do a thing that's related to that. And partly I noticed that, or for me at least, that constraint means two things. One is that you have one thing you want to do, and then there's a limited list of other things you can do, so it doesn't take so long to decide on something. And if you don't want to do any of them, you and the other is that you may come up with an idea for a thing that you weren't expecting to come up with an idea for, because you're just looking at the list of, oh, and I just realized that I have an idea for the theme song or whatever. So I think that's the reason I kept that. It kind of chunks things in a useful way.
The other thing that just occurred to me is that the other thing that those constraints do is you invite crosstalk into this game, but by constraining the scenes, it keeps the crosstalk to a modest, to kind of to only within the bounds of what you're talking about there. So like if we're talking about the theme song, there might be a little consultation about that, but we're not doing like the theme song and then arguing about, which orchestra we've got to play it, and, which themes are going to appear throughout which episodes at all times and stuff like that. It's like, I like that constraint, like I said, you invite the collaboration, but you give that some boundaries as well. That's the other thing that those constraints do that I think is helpful, that can keep things from kind of spinning, out of control.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention that, Jim, I have very similar frustrations with standard Microscope. So that's I like, and also I like structure, so I put a lot of structure into this because that works for me, and so far it's worked well with the.
You and I enjoy a lot of the same, some similar games, I think, for probably similar reasons in some cases. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Is there anything else anyone wants to add?
I 100% would watch this show.
Yeah.
I've
heard that about all the shows.
That's the highest compliment I can pay everybody else, is that I'm completely on board for this. I'm having one of those parties that Gerwin talked about when the premiere comes out.
With the rate Star Trek is like coming out, they're probably going to converge on this exact show at some point if it goes on long enough. So, in 30 years, you'll be watching Star Trek going, wait a second.
Well, they've got a Star Trek Academy show coming out, haven't they?
They keep talking about it. Like it's one of those things that's perpetually in development. And I don't know how definite it is or not, but like they've been talking about that for like 20 years. The next thing they'll do will probably be Star Trek Academy. So I'm gonna go look it up now, like once we're done with all this. So.
Yeah.
I heard mention of Katie Sackhoff in it, so if that's the case, I highly approve. She needs to get into more sci-fi.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you all for playing. Thank you all for playing, and useful feedback. And I will hope to play with you all in the not too distant future.
And you have my permission to post this up if you would like to post the video.
Yeah. Thank
Me
you.
too,
Thank
me
you
too.
for reminding me. Is
Yeah,
everyone okay with?
Ditto. Yep, I'm fine.
Cool. Then I will do so. Yeah. Thanks and goodbye. Have a good
Thanks
So
weekend.
much, everyone. Guys, have
LLAP, everybody.
fun. Yeah. See ya.
Take care.